Hi, and welcome to Epica. My name's Sam Spacey, and I'm the creator of Epica. Epica's taken me 3 years to finish, and has taken 16,548 24-bit samples, hand-edited, hand-looped, every single one listened to so they're perfect, and it's about 12 gigabytes inside, just over 12 gigabytes of 24-bit samples. Now I wanted this library to be originally for film score, big epic strings, pads, bombastic sounds, gone through some really nice analog kit, using only hardware synths as the sound source, be they digital or analog. And but the library kind of grew. It grew into lots of different areas. We had bass, we had monophonic synths, we had all sorts in there. So what I wanted to have was an interface to give the user not just playback and a couple of little options. I wanted you to be able to make your own sounds. Now, before I go further into this, I'll just let you into which synthesizers I kind of recorded. I'm sure there's a few I've missed. It's been quite a while. But there's the Yamaha CS30, CS15, the Sequential Pro 1, ARP Odyssey, a massive Oakley modular that I'm still building and it's still growing, a DX7, a Roland D50, Matrix 6R, and Sonic ESQ1, a Future Retro, a modern analog synth, an Eminent string machine, and a Kruma string machine. All these have gone through such lovely hardware like the Eventide H8000 Firewire that I almost had to mortgage the house to buy, a Lexicon PCM82 and 96, but pride of place has to be my UBK FAT, so I use it on absolutely everything. It just gives everything that on the record sound. It's hardware, harmonics, analog gorgeousness. And these all went through a couple of Neve preamps that I begged and borrowed and still haven't given back. Anyhow, this is Epica. If I go through the basics here, we have amplitude, which is your standard attack, hold, decay, sustain, and release controls. Over to the right here, we have the filter. Now the filter to velocity effects down here. So depending on how hard you hit the key, positive or negative, depends on how much the frequency, the envelope here is opened up. Velocity to amplitude is just a standard. How hard you hit it makes it go louder. Down over here, we have pitch envelope. A little unusual to have one of these on a synth library, but I find it quite useful. You have attack, decay, sustain. I didn't do a release on this, it really didn't need it. And amount, positive and negative. Positive and negative I got from the CS30 synths. It seems to help out a lot with sound design. Below that, I've only given you one effect in Kontakt. Whilst that might seem stingy, I feel that, like myself, a lot of people have a huge amount of reverbs, delays, choruses, and they're very personal to people. Effects units are something that people tend to have favorites of, so I didn't want to tie you down to the ones built in Kontakt. As good as they are, I wanted to just have a basic delay that you can turn on and off. Most of the sounds will have delay on them as standard because I like to hear them wet when I'm kind of auditioning them, so I made it real simple to turn it on and off. You have a time which is locked to the tempo of the track, and you can use subdivisions of that. Feedback, panning for ping pong, or down here for mono, and the amount of the effect. Down here we have the filter. Now you'll find most of the library where I can, I've used the actual hardware synths analog filter, but sometimes I've used the built-in ones from Kontakt, and I feel that in Kontakt 5 with the playback software as well, their new filters they've really done well with these. And we have low pass, band pass, and high pass and 2-pole, 12 dB, low and release, with the standard frequency and resonance, and how much the envelope affects the whole EDSA here, and that's positive and negative. Key tracking is the usual, closed filter at the bottom of the keyboard, and turn it up here, and the filter opens up as you go up. Over to the right, we have quite a complicated section. Well, it looks complicated, but if you break it down, it's not too bad. We have 3 LFOs, pitch, filter, and amplitude. And if we go over to pitch, we have all the different waveforms here, and it's the same for filter and amplitude. So if we go over to pitch, you've got positive and negative amounts here, and that'll instantly send the LFO here to the pitch, and you've got the frequency, the speed of the LFO. Now this little thing here, delay, which is on all 3, I really like this because if you have it on 0, it's immediate, the effect. If you move the delay up, it gradually ramps up the effect. So the delay, the LFO to pitch isn't immediate, it gradually comes in. And modulation wheel with positive and negative again. That's how much your modulation wheel will affect the LFO. So it's not too bad when you break it down. Directly above this, we have the start point modulator. I'm quite excited about this. I always wanted to put one of these in a library because in the old emulator days, I used to use this a lot because I'd sample the filter sweep because I wasn't too hot on the actual digital filters back then. So you get like an ARP Odyssey, you have a real bang sound, and you could modulate the start point along the samples. So you actually could manipulate the real analog filter. And I'll go through that in a demonstration in a bit, and you'll see what I mean. Velocity, similar thing. If you set that to say 6 and set this to 2, then at start point 2, it'll end at 6, and then however hard you hit the key, it'll work its way back along the sample. That works great for velocity to filter, but for the real filter for the analog synth. Random will move randomly at any point between A and B along the sample, and that's really good to get maybe a static sound to have some movement, so you don't get the machine gun effect. Talking of machine gun effect, you'll find that some of the bass samples, or most of them, are sampled every single key, up to 7 octaves on some of them, and I've done almost up to between 3 and 4 round robins on each note. All other presets have been extensively multi-sampled so that no one sample is ever played or transposed more than a note away from its root key. This helps hugely with the quality. Okay, so I've loaded up a preset called Giorgio Sweep. This preset was recorded from a Future Retro XS analog mono synth, and it's been sampled every single key, and here it is now. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to see what I can do with that sound using the interface of Epica. Using the same preset, I'll now go over to the LFO and do some live examples of how the LFO interacts with the sound. As I mentioned before, if you have the delay on 0, then you get an instant pitched LFO, but if you move it up, it fades in nicely. To assign it to modulation wheel, you simply move the modulation wheel up to positive or negative depending on how you want it to interact, and just 0 this one. If you can't get it exactly on 0, hold down Command on the Mac or Control on the PC and just click like this. And now if I move the modulation wheel, we should have turn the delay back to 0. Complete control. Okay, if I now go down to filter, if I apply some to here, I'll just enable the filter over here. Change the frequency. Now the filter's a good one to go through the actual waveforms on, so what we'll do is we'll set it to like a wah. And we'll change through the filter settings. Random works nicely with this sound. What I'll do is I'll set the delay to come in slowly. A bit sooner. Add some echo. Put the frequency down a bit. That's nice. Add a tiny bit of pitch. To get really fine controls, hold down the shift key and you can move up and down in much smaller increments. Now we're up on the pitch envelope here. I've set the decay to around 6, sustain to 0, and the attack up a bit. If I move the amount up, set it to negative. So if I reset these, set that to positive, as you move decay up. Bit of attack. Now the velocity up here, I've set the velocity to amp to 0. I don't want any velocity information to the keyboard. But on the filter, if I now attach that up, the harder I hit the key, the more open the filter down here goes. All these enable you to have a huge amount of control over your sounds. Bring the filter down a bit. And talking to filter, we haven't enabled the envelope yet, so if I turn the envelope up, bring the filter down a bit more. So from that basic little sound, we've got quite complex. And this Giorgio Sweep preset is probably one of the most simplest presets in the synth. I only used it because it's quite sonically rich and simple, so you can hear the effects going on. Delve into the instruments and make your own multis. There's a huge sonic scope for sounds in Epica. I really don't think you'll get bored of this for years to come. So what do you get with Epica? Over in the instrument folder, we have several categories ranging from pads, bright, soft, bass, mono, plucked, side effects, affected and sequence. In here are the single instruments. By going to pads, you'll see we have a huge selection here under pads. There's just under 500 individual single presets in the bright folder, soft, bass, mono, plucked, side effects, affected, and sequence. But for me, where the real sound is in the multis. Here in these multis, these 117 multis, if I drag across, say, Ancient Tongue, you can see there's 3 presets here. Now, the interfaces have been made smaller so that they can all fit on. You can see what's going on. You can make them bigger simply by just double-clicking on this icon, or single-clicking. And you scroll down a bit and you can see your whole interface there, and you can do that for any of these. And in the multi-section, I've got them all here on Omni so that when I press a key, all 3 of these go at the same time. A bit how the old workstations used to use. And you can choose which MIDI channel You can choose the volume, the panning, tuning. If you hold the shift key down, you can go into some much smaller increments of tuning. And you can even change how many notes polyphony there is. Anyway, let me close this off. I'll show you how to load up a single. So let's say you want to load up sci-fi film out of the pads category. And let's say you want to build another sound on top of that in the same MIDI channel. I'll just close it down, make it smaller, drag, say, Angelic across, and drag another one across. You just keep building up like this. To save a preset, it's very simple. You just save as, give it your name, basically. Okay, and that's it, really.